Hello, Game of Her Own listeners. I am so glad that you're here. It is that time of the year again, and the Game of Her Own team is taking some time off during the holidays to hang out with family and celebrate the new year. Of course, we did not want to leave you hanging, so we are re-airing an episode, a fan favorite for sure, episode number 28 with Cara Adams, the director of guest experience for the Portland Trailblazers. I'm telling you right now, you are going to feel like you either went to church or a motivational speaker. You are going to feel inspired after you listen to Cara speak. So I hope you have a wonderful holiday and I hope you enjoy this episode. We will be back in the new year with brand new episodes. Enjoy. Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here. Okay, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Do you go after what you want? Do you know what you want out of your career? What do you do when you hear no? Listen, you do not want to miss my conversation with Cara Adams. She's the director of guest experience at the Portland Trailblazers. She answers all those questions and talks about exactly what she does. She takes us on her journey and shares why being crystal clear on what matters most to her is so valuable. She talks about advocating for herself and always shooting her shot, and why all of that has led to her having such a fulfilling and successful career. This Howard alum is a total boss, and you're going to love her candid and real advice. All right, ladies, let's jump in. Cara, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. We are so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited too, girl. Well, nervous, but excited.
That's okay. I mean, I feel like nerves are really just, it's excitement. It's just hiding behind something else.
It is. Yeah, I agree. I'm ready though.
Okay, good. All right. So before we dive in though, take us back and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
I will say it's probably a 2-part answer. So growing up, I grew up in the Bay Area in California. So I grew up in San Leandro, and my parents relocated to California from the South. And upon moving there, they became Lakers fans. They moved to LA, they were Lakers fans, they moved to the Bay Area and became kind of home team fans, right? So rooted for the Oakland A's, rooted for the Oakland Raiders. And that kind of became my life, if you will. So not organized sport until probably middle school, high school, but active when I was younger. So love competition, you name it, double dutch, hopscotch, dodgeball, swimming. I was that child, cheerleading, but not until we moved cross country did I kind of fall in love with sport as an actual, profession or career, if you will. Had the opportunity to have a sport marketing class in high school. And most folks are probably that's a thing. But in the very illustrious Loudoun County, Virginia, it was certainly a thing. I had a sport marketing class and our teacher just kind of taught it and I loved it. And from that moment on, I knew that's something I wanted to consider. So that was the beginning of it.
Wow. Okay, wait, let's go back to what I find. I'm not sure how everyone else is thinking about it, but one thing that sticks out to me is that you love competition. Okay, check. I understand that. But you were really good at double dutch.
I used to get it in. So single, double dutch, that was my thing. I actually was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I wonder am I still any good? One of my TV shows I've been binging lately, I won't name it because I don't want judgment. The girl was the lead person in the show was double dutching. I was like, I might have to find someone in Portland who can double dutch. I don't know. They ain't out here.
It was one thing. I would spend a lot of my summers at my grandmother's in Jersey City, New Jersey, and everybody would be outside, jump roping and double dutching. I was like, I can play soccer. Is that a thing? Do you guys want to go play soccer? I could not double dutch. And to this day, it is something I wish that I could do.
It's never too late. I don't think it's too late. I feel like it's very possible for you to go ahead and start that.
Yeah, you know what? I think so too, because I feel it. Like I was walking down the street and this little girl was trying to learn, and somebody had tied two ropes to like a pole or something. Mm-hmm. And then she was just doing it, and she was trying to get the little girl to learn. I was like, I wish I could like practice with her too, but COVID, and it's kind of weird that I just approach a strange little girl and ask her, or I'm the stranger. I guess I'm the stranger.
You're
and
the stranger.
Ask her if I could play. Yeah, I need to do it in the comfort of my own backyard so no one can see me.
Yes, but you need to find someone who knows how to, so they can actually turn the ropes the proper way for you.
Yes, I really wish that we were not so far apart. I wish we were in the same city, because I feel like this could be a good thing.
This could be a thing. Like, we'll have coffee days, we'll have like a double dutch.
I love it. All right. So sports marketing class in high school, that's what turned you on to wanting to work in sports.
Yeah. So that was high school. I did DECA. So I was a part of that club in high school. And that, of course, introduced you to business on a different level. And played sport, ran track, played basketball. And then fast forward, it was time to go to college. I was like, well, I don't think I'm good enough to play basketball in college, which is a decision I certainly regret, or which I would have rethought that one before I said it, but ended up going to college at the illustrious Howard University, and they did not have a sport program. So I was undeclared my freshman year. And then after my freshman year, one of our advisors was like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. So, well, you're on track to graduate. Like, you've done really well. Your first semester being like in second semester without a major, but you can declare sometime soon. I'm like, what about sports? So we don't have a sports major here. I'm like, okay, so like, can we have a sports major here? Like, is that a thing? She's like, I mean, let's try. So put me in contact with the people who would kind of advise or that program would fall under. And little did I know, that was like the start of me becoming, I guess, a bona fide leader. So got, I guess, petition, if you will, signed by students who wanted to participate in the sport management program. Found an advisor. So shout out to my mentor, Deborah Johnson. And the next thing I knew, that following spring, going into my sophomore year, we had a declared sport management major that I had a hand in kind of putting together. Wow. And yeah, so things just kind of started to happen. One of the upperclassmen at the time knew I wanted to do sports, introduced me to my mentor now, Ed Hill, who was a former sports information director at Howard University. And he was like, okay, if you want to do this, like, kind of prove yourself. Like, all right, cool. Whatever that means, I'll do it. So how can I help? What do you want me to do? How can I be of assistance? So I was one of his first like student workers. Like, I guess if you put it into terms of what it would actually be called. But I started to travel with him to different games. I started to help him with stats. I started to introduce the coaches to the commentators. I started to do, I guess, name pronunciations, if you will, before the games. I used to do family and friend gatherings. I used to help with alumni events. So he kind of set me aboard, if you will, that roller coaster or journey that would become internships and student worker opportunities.
Wow, that's so impressive. Your school did not have a sports major, right? Sports education, sports management, whatever you want to call it. And you went out and petitioned and got it. And that's what you ended up getting your degree in.
Yeah. 4 years later. And I graduated in 4 years.
I mean, that's really impressive. I mean, that's a great story to tell no matter where you are in your career as you like interview. Like you can talk about how you started it at Howard. Like, come on. That's fantastic.
I don't forget about it. I guess I forget about the impact maybe that it had. Because I mean, like, I'm not that far removed. I'm far enough to remove that folks who are there now have no idea who I am. And that's okay. They don't have to know who I am, because sometimes you are blessed to be a blessing. So like I did things because I wanted to do it in that moment, but I now know the fruits, if you will, of that labor is still being sown, and also folks are still reaping from it. So I'm grateful for that. I'm also very humble when folks do like, aren't you the girl who helped start the major? I'm like, oh.
That is fantastic. Okay. So tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for.
Yeah. So I am currently the director of guest experience for Rep City Management, or for the world to know, the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay.
Capacity, I am responsible for ensuring that the guests who come into our venues, because we do oversee 2 venues. So we have Moda Center, where the Trailblazers play, and then we have the VMC, or Veterans Memorial Coliseum, where our Winter Hawks team plays. We'll have smaller events there. We'll have conferences and conventions there. But both spaces are right next door to each other. But it's our responsibility to ensure that the guests who come into those spaces are enjoying themselves, having a great time. If there's an issue, of course, our team's responsibility is to fix the issue. I always try to compare it to hospitality or customer service just in the sports space. So if you go to a hotel and you have an issue, you want to talk to the manager, i.e. in this instance, you talking to me or someone on my team. If you have a food issue, while the food does not necessarily report to my team, it's still our job to ensure that whoever the issue is with is able to accommodate you or to rectify the situation for you. So our job is not necessarily to affect, if you will, the players or the thing on the court or the thing on the floor, but it is to ensure those folks who came to see that item on the floor, that product on the floor, are still able to enjoy themselves and want to come back. So we want to continue to have the impact that will have, of course, return visitors and return guests.
Okay. Did you always know you wanted to be in the fan experience space?
Oh, no, child. No. So if I take it back to my Howard career, I've had about 7 or 8 internships. And one of the stops along said internships was with a wonderful nonprofit that taught high school students during the summer, sport management and sport marketing. In part of that program, the young lady who ran it at the time got us all part-time positions or placed us in a position to get part-time positions with the Washington Nationals. So I worked there part-time in college as the guest experience representative, and that was the first year the ballpark opened. Now, if you see my resume, fast forward a few years later, I then became the manager of that department. So I can't say that I went into it thinking like, cannot wait to work with people and get yelled at about their issues that I had nothing to do with. But I've always been an operational mind. I've always been a logistics mind. I've always been someone who can hone in on the details and want to know why things happen the way they do and what I can do in my position to fix the thing. I do believe I am called to problems, so therefore I am called to people. And while customer service is not for the faint of heart, it is most certainly rewarding. So I think I wanted to go into the operational space so I can have a say in the background, right, of the behind the scenes measures that went into place. That just kind of trickled into someone being like, I think you'd be really good at this. I'm like, cool, all right, let's try it. So yeah, I did not see it. I wanted to go into development coming out of college. I wanted to host money and all the things, but that is not the path that we are currently on.
So you were just open. You were open to trying it. And I mean, it sounds like you were open to experience with your 7 or 8 internships.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was always one to try new things and figure out for me if that worked, right? I never wanted to take anyone's word or anyone's, not necessarily advice. I wanted to find out for myself. And I think that if a parent listening to this, they're probably thinking like, oh, she probably was a hard-headed child. I mean, maybe, if you ask my parents, maybe. However, I was also one that wanted to try things. So I interned in development. I interned in nonprofits. I interned with Washington Wizards in sponsorship. I interned at NASCAR in diversity and equity and inclusion under my amazing former boss, Brandon Thompson, who's still leading the path for diversity and equity there now. So I've interned in different places. I've interned in collegiate athletics. I've interned in marketing. So I just wanted to see what were the things that would make me tick. Where could I best be of assistance? Where could I best be of use? And where could I grow also in my own path to where I was going to be? But I say that to say that all those things help me along the path, right? Like even in my operations or guest experience position now, I still very much have to be able to relate to folks based on the marketing aspect. I have to work with our sponsorship team in different capacities. I have to work closely with our D&I crew in their recruiting and helping hire and things of that nature. So all the things that I've accomplished thus far, every unpaid internship that I took was for this moment and will be for moments to come. So I could better assist someone else.
And it sounds to me like you had all these experiences. You wanted to experience it for yourself, which for anyone who's listening, I mean, it's so smart, right? So you want to experience it yourself, feel it, and really understand if it aligns with what's important to you, what your values are, right? If I heard you correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's nothing that I have done thus far when it's come to, I guess, a position, if you will, that I didn't experience first. So as I said, I speak back to my graduate career. So I attended graduate school at UCF in the DeVos Sport Business Management program. And part of that was we had these introductions and like, I'm Cara Adams and I attended Howard University for undergrad. And when I finish this program, I would like to work in development for college. Like, okay, cool. That's fun. That sounds good. Everyone had a thing they wanted to do because it sounded good or it looked good or someone told them this was the right way to get to the door. So when my time came, I went back east and I worked at Towson University in development for a year and realized that was not my call. I had an amazing team that helped lead me and helped put me in positions to do different things. It wasn't my purpose. I could do it, but I didn't necessarily feel fulfilled. That wasn't the thing that would make me want to get out of bed every morning for years to come. And I know that because I stopped wanting to get out of bed in the morning towards the end of my year contract there. And yourself enough to know that, hey, I tried it and I gave it my 125% while I was there doing that thing. But being able to bow out gracefully and thank that thing for what it served, the purpose it served for you, and knowing that wasn't the thing that's going to continue to serve you move.
That's so good. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is so smart. A lot of people who are junior in their career or in internships, right? And they're just getting in the door are thinking, I'm so grateful to be here. This doesn't fulfill me, but I'm in the door. I have to keep doing this. I mean, what would you say to them if they were in this conversation with us?
Jahaan. So if you are listening to that, don't do that. Please don't do that. So I had a conversation with someone recently, very similar. Folks will always say, I just want my foot in the door. I just want to get my foot in the door. By you saying that, while I understand where that comes from, there's a hunger lying inside of you. There's this burning and this yearning and all the things that you want to be great in sport. And we understand that. Someone who has a hiring position, I understand that for folks who see resumes every day. However, in doing that, if you're not going to follow the thing that makes you tick, if you're not going to follow your passion, you're then taking away opportunity for someone else who does have a passion for that thing. So not just saying, I want to get my foot in the door, have some actual meaning behind that. Have some actual ideas behind that. That doesn't mean you have to know what you want to do, because I didn't. I absolutely did not. But that's why I was open to internships and assistantships and volunteering so much. So do that thing, right? So volunteer, reach out to folks and say, hey, I think I want to do this, but I'm not sure. Is there an opportunity for me to volunteer with you? Or is there an assistantship available? Is there an internship available? Don't just do it because you want to get your foot in the door. I've seen opportunities where I've interviewed for someone for an internship position, and that person has interviewed with 7 other departments in my organization. Well, what do you really want to do? Like, we're all happy to help you, but we also all communicate. So we also know that you just interviewed for 7 other positions. So how can we best assist you? Be truthful with yourself about what that looks like. Don't just sell me a dream because you want me to convince me to buy it. I'm pretty good. My discernment's getting better, so I can know this is not what's going to best suit you. So be honest with yourself and be honest with others who can assist you. So don't ever just be the person who wants to get their foot in the door, because once you get the foot in the door, that's not going to keep you there. The work ethic that you put into is going to keep you there. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing, how do you truly stay there? How do you truly make a good name for yourself when someone's maybe felt like you wasted their time, or you burnt a bridge, or you kind of slacked off on your work because you weren't genuinely happy doing that thing that got you into the door?
Mm-hmm. Yes, when you don't enjoy what you do, it shows to everyone else. So yes, you can, some people interview very well and they can get in and sell you on that this is where they want to be. And maybe they think it themselves too, right? And then down the line, it starts to show, right? When it starts to get, you have a grueling season, when you haven't had a day off in a couple of weeks, right? Your boss is pushing you because everyone's getting pushed because you guys are under pressure for whatever reason. Sure. It starts to show if you don't like what you do. If you're not fulfilled, it'll start to show, and then it reflects poorly on you, right?
Absolutely. I could not agree more, especially, and it doesn't, I wouldn't say it depends on where you're located, but we both worked in baseball. We know we have long homestands in baseball. You might have 30 days, and out of those 30 days, you might have 23 of them or 22 of them full of baseball games. So if you're in a space where you have to see folks every day, all day, multiple times a day, work with different departments, and you're truly not enjoying it, that is the quickest way to tell someone's just kind of wasting your time, and you can't get time back. So don't ever waste it.
Mm-hmm. And sports is a small world, and we all talk and we all know the same people, and you just don't want that. You don't want your reputation to be about, being the person who just doesn't like their job and is miserable. And you know what I mean? And took a role that doesn't suit them. That's not what you want, because the more people I talk to, right, and I've been doing this for a long time,
just working in sports. And then the more people I talk to, the more people who say, oh, I got my job because so-and-so mentioned, how, great I was in that role. And, like they weren't even asking for a reference. It's just that people were talking and then they remember the people who were doing things well. And that's how you continue to advance your career. Right?
Yeah. Networking. And people are forgetting that your name is often going to be mentioned in rooms you've never stepped foot in.
Yes.
So mindful of what happens when your name is mentioned. How is your name mentioned? And what context is your name mentioned? And then you kind of go from there. But again, that's just kind of how it is. That's just how it works.
Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram @jahaanblake, and let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here. All right, so how long have you been with the Portland Trail Blazers?
So this month makes a whopping 6 months.
Woo! 6 months in the middle of COVID and everything else that 2020 has thrown our way.
My. Yes, 2020 has been a doozy, but I think that if anyone out there listening has questions about how to onboard an employee, hire an employee during COVID-19, during this pandemic, by all means, I'm your girl. Call me, email me, let's talk about it. So yeah, I accepted the position in February. I moved here in March, and my onboarding and my moving was so non-traditional. I was still helping out with my, then current employer for an additional month or so. My hope was to be able to onboard our new manager, senior manager with the Nationals, while I started here. And that just did not work just because, again, pandemic. So I started here in March, a week after the NBA suspended. And I needed to call and just make sure I had a job still. And amen, I did. So I am here. It has been quite interesting. I have not stepped foot into my office. I have not stepped foot into the arena. I have watched every game on TV like the rest of the world has, and have been creatively and uniquely getting my team involved, as well as engaging with them, just so they know that I am here. I definitely can't say that I am used to this onboarding, but they have been amazing. They have been truly amazing on helping me get acclimated to the guest experience here.
Okay, so you were with the Washington Nationals before this job.
Right.
Took this job, moved in March in the middle of COVID. Okay, aside from COVID, right, what were and you still had a job, which is great, like you said. That's
yes.
Nice. What was your biggest fears as you were making this move?
I think they were probably like small things, right? Like not small, but for instance, because of the virus, because of COVID-19, you couldn't really see a lot of things physically. So like me trying to find an apartment was trusting that the video tour the leasing department sent me was like the truest form of what was actually happening. And they weren't like sitting at an angle that kind of left out something. So I couldn't actually see my apartment before moving. So the apartment that I looked at, I couldn't physically see. I couldn't be in a physical space of it. So like that for me was like the biggest thing. Like my friends always remind me, like, you do know you moved across the country in the middle of a global pandemic with no friends and not knowing a single soul out there. So like you, ma'am, are a different kind of courageous. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I just knew there was gonna be good food here and water, and I was content with those things. So I guess my fears were not the traditional, like, oh, I won't have friends. Like those things didn't really kind of play a part in my mind. Quite as kept, I had started a list a year prior in my next position what I wanted it to consist of. So I felt like when this came about, like that was very much on par. Like when God said, like, move, I needed to make sure I heard him say move to Portland from DC. I wanted to make sure I heard him real clearly because that was not a normal destination. But I had very much made a list, and I wanted to ensure that all the things on that list were going to be checked off in my next, not only position, my next city as well. So I was very much at peace with my arrival here. And I say that and I guess that kind of answers the question in a roundabout way. I didn't have a lot of fears. I didn't have a lot of traditional worries about, oh, people like me, or will I find a friend, or will I find a church home? I felt like all those things were going to come in its time. I just knew the core things of what I felt like I had prayed for and wanted for myself were very much aligned.
Mm-hmm. What inspired you to create this list?
I don't want to give credit to the wrong thing or person, but I believe it was like a combination of a church sermon, podcast, or a conversation. I usually do vision boards every year, tone for my calendar year. And while I had not done one this year, I had done one like the past, 3 or 4 or 5 years consecutively. And I, again, write the vision, make it plain, and like know what you're actually aiming for. Know words have power. So know what you're trying to speak into existence and know what you're asking the world and the things and the energy of the world for. So made this list just because I wanted to make sure that I had something to focus on. A lot of people will just do things because they're supposed to, right? Like, oh, I've been here for so many years, time for me to go. Oh, okay, well, that's one way to look at it. Or you could say, this thing that I love has met the piece or the space or the level at which it will for me. That the thing that once served me no longer does. That I have maxed out energy-wise at this location or this house or this apartment or this job or this relationship. So for me, it was a combination of some of those things and just saying, okay, well, I can't be or I won't be. I want to be more than a senior manager at this point. So I got promoted, was now senior manager with the Washington Nationals, and was like, okay, I want to at some point be a director. I had that conversation with my previous director and thankful for his amazingness and leadership had just kind of steered me and said, okay, what do you want to take ownership of now so you can learn, so you can be your own director? So I kind of make this list, right? My next position, I want to direct a team. I want to have good food options. I want to be able to hop on a plane and get to whatever city my heart desires. I want to go somewhere I've never been to. I want to be in a space that I know little to nobody. So I could be forced to be my own best friend and go from there. So I made this list and kind of just focused on it and prayed on it for almost a year, honestly. And every position that came before this one, I was like, oh, this is a shoe-in. I got it. Like, I'm qualified. I'm going to kill it in the city. And I was like, ooh, nope, do that. And there were cities and areas that I had been to before. So when I look back on it, that's not what I asked for. I asked to be challenged in a way that I hadn't been challenged before. So that I would have gotten an offer in a city that I had been to before, that I had visited or I knew someone in. Would that have really served the purpose that I wanted or that God wanted? Probably not. So that's why I ended up in Portland. I mean, for multiple reasons, but the list hit the marks. It hit the marks of the thing that hit the mark of working and being led by someone who wants me to grow and doesn't want to stunt my growth, who's open to giving more responsibility, who's diverse in their way of thinking, working for an organization that can admit their flaws and go on from there. So there's just different things. I don't want to harp on the list too much, but there's just different things on that list that I really focused on and honed on. And from the first interview, I was very transparent with that. I was very clear about what I wanted, what I expected, and what I was not going to budge on. And I say that to say that when you go into a process so authentically, then you are okay with whatever that outcome may be.
Yes. You know, I love this list because I feel it almost becomes like a scorecard when you're interviewing with other organizations, and it keeps you honest and true to yourself when you put it down in writing. Because some of these offers, you made it interviewed and it just seems so exciting, and it was, the director role, or maybe it was higher, and it just, you were like, it's easy to lose sight of what's important to you when you don't put it on paper. And this, I love what you're saying, because you're validating. What I do with my clients is we sit down. The first thing we do is we get clear on what matters most, and we put it all in writing, and then we use it as a scorecard anytime an opportunity, whether internally or externally, comes their way. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that will give some clarity for people who I don't work with. Just, okay, I can write it down and just speak it into existence, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Write it down, but don't forget it, right? I think we often sometimes, even when you're a student, right, you take notes in the class and you forget you have a quiz coming up and you try to go back and find the notes. Or when you go to church, you listen to a sermon, you write the notes down, you forget you wrote the notes. Don't forget the notes. Because if you don't see it, if you don't speak it, if you don't put your eyes on it, if you don't claim it, then what happens? You forget you even did it to begin with. So then you, to your point, you do lose some clarity and you do lose some certainty about what you're trying to accomplish and what role and what space you want to be in. So look at that list. Continue to speak life into that list and continue to be upfront about that list. Let that list speak to your first interview conversation. In that first call, what are you looking for in a position? Because that usually always comes up. Let's discuss it. Let's discuss my list. Let's discuss the things that I won't budge on or that I won't compromise on. And that doesn't mean you're prideful or have a large ego. It means that you're certain about yourself and the things that you want to benefit you, because you can't go somewhere that you're not going to be truly happy.
This is good. I feel like we're at church. Okay. I love your career superpower. I think you have two, as I understand it, but turning nerves into confidence. Talk a little bit about what that means to you. Because I mean, let's be honest, we all get nerves. Anyone who's listening right now has got a case of the nerves. They never come up at the right time, right? So how do you do that? How do you turn your nerves into confidence?
So there's a bout of, I wouldn't say I have a worst case of anxiety, but I think I am very type A. I'm a true Cancer. I have a lot of control things happening in my mind. And I think a lot of that turns into nerves because I want to be perfect, right? I want to, and that in itself is probably another sermon or another conversation, but there is no perfection, right? So we should be striving for progression. I think the nerves come from, to your point, having so much into it. Like I bought into the thing. I want to make sure that thing, that conversation, that interview, that podcast, that training goes well. And there's nerves there because I'm like, what happens if it doesn't? So being able to take a step back and again, remember that you are not striving to be perfect. You're just striving to be a work in progress. So for me, I've always been told, like, oh my God, you're so confident. Like that training was so good. Like that call was so good. Like it was amazing. Like I was sweating the entire time, about to cry. So I don't know. Like I can't take, that is God. I cannot take full credit for that. Sarah Jakes Roberts, she's amazing. She's a great podcast, Woman Evolve, but she always prays before she speaks to her congregation and says like, Lord, like if you increase and I'll decrease, let them see you and not see me. Like those are the kind of words that kind of remind me to just take a step back. At the end of the day, if they only remember me and the thing I did, then I'm not really proven I'm not done what I've come to do. So let me speak based off of my own knowledge. Let me speak from the heart so it's genuine. Let me be authentic in my words and transparent in my thought. So hopefully that is coming from a space that's bigger than me. So I've done trainings and I've done classroom teachings, or I've done speakings, or I've done conversations where folks are just like, oh my God, you were so confident. I'm just like, yeah, thanks, girl. So I'm grateful for that. I'm humbled by that because not going into it, I did not feel that way. So I may have been overly nervous, or I may have been overthinking conversation or the thing, but that just kind of switches it. So I think that if you are able to just take a second, breathe, and remember that everyone's different. So if there is a higher power or a higher being that you believe in, pray to, or value, focusing that attention on the thing. Everything that you need to do the thing, to do the job, to do the training, to do the conversation, to do the podcast, to do the sermon, you already have inside of you. So if I focus on that, if I remember that I did not get asked to do this because I was ill prepared, but only because someone saw something in me, then I'll be okay. That person was confident in my competence. So therefore, let's remember that and let's not overthink it. And we'll be okay. We'll saw it out. Take a few minutes, sometimes 5-minute music roll call. Everyone's getting settled. Do a little dance, talk about a current event, and then we'll saw it out, and then we'll go from there. And then without knowing, 2 hours later, an hour later, I'm like, oh, we were fine. We were good. We did well today.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do people say to you, you were nervous? I had no idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Me telling you before we start, like, oh, I'm a little nervous. Like, I don't usually say it. But again, because words have power, like I spoke truth to the thing that was in the room. Now we'll move on from there.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. People are shocked. I was like, oh, I still get nervous. Doesn't mean I'm going to perform poorly. Right? Like I love leading a training. I feel like you and I would have a lot of fun leading a training together, but it's so, yes, right? It's so fun. But every time, like, I mean, some of them are just turnkey too, right? Like, depending on the client, just doing the same sort of work. And I get nervous, sweating, hot, but when I'm done, I'm like, whew, I knew it was good. And I didn't think I was going to be, I don't know what the nerves are from, but it's something I've had my entire career. And when I finally did my best work is when I just embraced them. And really what your superpower is, right? It was when I finally learned how to turn them into confidence. So
yeah, it's funny. My junior or senior year, I forget. I was like a starter on our basketball team throughout like high school. And I remember like towards the end of maybe like my junior year, my basketball coach like started sitting me, and he's like, "I'm not starting you no more." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "You, for whatever reason, like when you get out there and you start, like you're not able to do what you need to do. But if I sit you on the bench for like that first minute or two, you somehow just gather yourself and come on in. So I feel like for me, my nerves started years ago. Before every track meet, I would get nervous. Before every basketball game, I would get nervous. But he was able to see, like, just give her a second to read the room, to paint the picture, to focus on the thing that needs to be done, and then put her in. Now, you don't always get the opportunity to do that in training world, but sometimes the version of that for me in training is playing music for the first 5 minutes, letting folks get settled, walking around having casual conversation with my trainees, my client, whoever the person might be. And then, like, okay, we've settled it. We've read the room. We understand our space. We understand our purpose today. Now let's go ahead and go into the thing and let's shut it down and kill it.
Yes. Literally, I was just like, oh, it's like you saw what I was doing. That's what I do. I play the music. I walk around. I get to know the people I'm about to train, right? Like, it's a couple hundred people. Well, you know, I try to just meet the people, especially the people who sit up front and the people who sit in the back, right? You just want to get to know who all those people are. But I love those tips. Those are really good. All right, let's talk about advocating for yourself, showing your value. New team in the middle of COVID and you haven't even been to your office yet. How are you doing that?
I have never been someone who's kind of cowered or shied away. I've never been quiet. I'm not an introvert. I'm going to speak up. If I have an opinion, you're going to know it. There's an issue, you're also going to know it. I'm going to deliver it with love and kindness, but you're going to know if there's a concern, if there's an issue. And I think that's kind of traveled with me all the years, and it's not left in this space either. I think humor and laughing is a common language across people. So coming in here, getting to know my new team, sharing laughs with them. I do a thing with astrology. So like every meeting we would do like our horoscopes, and like that would be our icebreaker. And that became normal to them. So like if I didn't do, like, what's wrong? Are you okay today? You didn't do our horoscopes. Like, what's our horoscopes for today? And then that would lead to a conversation about a thing or a family reminder, or me being vulnerable with them about either family illnesses or relationship battles or concerns with my last position would make them open up more. When folks see you're more vulnerable, then of course they'll be willing to do the same thing with you. And they are in an interesting space where I am the third director in 3 years. So already going into it, there's a bit of a work trauma there. And I already knew that. So let me be upfront about everything, right? Let me try to remind them that, like, I'm not going anywhere, but not say it like that. Like, oh yeah, I'm looking at real estate agents now. Oh, so in my mind, that translates to, oh, she's going to be here for a second. And that's being truthful. Or, yeah, I need to go home and visit my parents because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, she's being vulnerable. She's being able to and being open about her life. She doesn't have to be, but she's trying her best to make sure that we understand that she's here to do more and just try to improve and increase the guest experience. But she wants to make sure that folks who are here in that space are enjoying themselves. So I always have called myself and strive to be a servant leader. And I have to first serve my internal guests, which are my staff members. So I have to be able to make sure that they are on board with the program and they are pushing it forward and they understand who they got in the leader. So I am very opposite of them. I am the extroverted, and I think it's for a good reason. Like I am the director that I've always needed. And I am the director that I have been lucky enough to be managed by. I've been able to work under folks who have led the way, who've advocated for me as a Black woman and as a woman in general. And I want to be that for my team. I want to be the one that addresses issues when they're wrong. I want to be the one who calls out microaggressions. I want to be the one that calls out concerns because our department is not revenue generating. So we always get kind of big brothered or big sistered or stepchild sometimes. So I want to be the one that calls out the differences when they are present. So being able to be that person, for me, I came here with all my cards being held. Like I am the girl that you hired. I am the transparent, advocating, authentic, sense of humor, direct person. And I'm going to be that in every facet. So let's just like get over that little hump. So now that we're here, we understand like my personality, let's move forward. So if there's an issue that my team has embraced or faced in the past year or two, and it's not worked for their benefit, okay, walk me through how we got here. Give me the background, give me the details before I just go launching into something. I want to know what you know about it. So getting them to understand, I need the information so I can go advocate for us as a department. So I can go advocate for you in your raise. So I can go advocate for you and what you've accomplished. Okay, you may want this thing. You may want this raise, this title change. What have you done before I arrived that has gone to show that you're worthy of such? We don't know, and that's okay. So moving forward from this day on, we're going to have a list. We'll have a running list. We'll update this list for the next 5 to 9 months. And when it's time for us to go ahead and do this conversation again, advocate, review, etc., then let's revisit this thing. So very similar to what I've had to do for myself, advocating for myself to get a raise and promotion with the Nationals. No one offered me that. I had to literally write a memo as to why I deserved it. And I didn't get it approved the first time, so I did it a second time. Because you can tell me no, that's okay. I can say no, but I'm going to come back again. And so I can figure out why I didn't get the thing, why I didn't get the position or the raise or the compensation. Even for this position, out the gate, what's your salary requirements? I told you, oh, okay. All right. We can talk about that when we get close to that day. All right, cool. But I wasn't going to shy away because the response wasn't what you expected. Relocation, well, done my research. Do your research. Always do your research. If you're going to advocate for yourself in any capacity, do your research. So relocation is going to cost this much. What you've offered may not cover what I need. Let's have a conversation about that. Okay, cool. Black women, let alone women in general, don't advocate for themselves enough. So I have done nothing else. I have made sure the folks who have come behind me, who I've mentored or have advocated for, who have advised or even having a conversation with, I always try to make sure I speak to that part. Because I want them to know that from the outside looking in, you may think like, oh, she was a project manager. Oh, she was a manager, then a senior manager, the director. But no one offered me those positions. I had to work for them. I had to advocate for them. I had to ask for them. I had to interview for them. So if I can do it, then I feel like anyone else can. If you need a dose of motivation, I will happily be anybody's hype woman to get them hype enough to do the thing and ask the question. But if you don't ask, you don't know. And sometimes it is hard, but at the end of the day, what are they going to tell you? No? Okay, I appreciate that. Now, for my own personal growth, can you explain to me like why no is what it was? So you can also take that away. So a good leader isn't just going to shoo you away to get you out of their face, but they should just give you some insight as to how you can be better or do differently or grow for next time. And maybe it's not you. Maybe it's just that it's COVID-19 and the budget is pretty much depleted and this is not a good time. But in another lifetime, next year maybe, this could be a conversation we could have. So definitely advocate. And I give credit to my former coworkers at a nonprofit I worked at. They were all older than me, predominantly a Black organization, and always fed and loved and made sure to give me what I needed. And one of the older gentlemen there, probably my dad's age, and his 60s at the time, was always be like, Black women don't advocate enough for themselves. Like, let me see your offer. Let's go to the offer. Now, when you respond back, we're going to say these things is what you need to take this position. And the first time I did a salary negotiation, I didn't get it, but it gave me the practice to know that I can do it. Now that I'm confident enough to do it. And if I want to do the research, this is how I have to go about doing so. And this is the conversation I'm going to have. This is the language I'm going to have in my toolkit, if you will, for a later date. Mm-hmm. So I did it. I got it. Got it that time.
Yes. So you did it once, maybe you heard no, but there was no regret there, right? You did the thing, you asked the question, and you got good practice.
Yeah.
And then when it came time, you did it again and you got it.
Yeah.
And nothing bad happened to you when you got the no the first time.
Nope, nothing. Just my little feelings was hurt for a day, but that's okay. Listen, for all those sports fans, shoot your shot and keep shooting. If you're shooting, it'll drop. It'll drop at some point. You just gotta keep shooting. All
right, you shared some great stuff with us. I'm thinking, if you're thinking back on your career, if you just exude confidence, you are out there doing the thing, asking the question and being your extroverted self and authentic self, which I love that. And I hope everybody who's listening heard those keywords, authentic self. You still got the job, but you were your authentic self. Mm-hmm. What's one thing you would do differently? If you had to go back, you wish you could do differently in your career?
I struggle with that question because if I take anything away, I feel like I lose the rest of it. I don't take the NASCAR internship the first time. I don't take it the second time. I don't find myself in Daytona Beach for a summer interviewing drivers and living my best life and realizing that NASCAR may not be a whole bunch of folks who are racist. Then I have a bias that continues throughout my adulthood. If I say no to the Wizards internship, then I don't meet my mentor, who's a Howard Bison. So I don't know where along the line I could have done differently. Like one of my best friends and I, we jokingly say that if we did one thing differently, we would go and find a dual master's program for our graduate degrees. And there's programs now, and there probably always has been, that offers like an MBA and a PhD, or a master's in something and a PhD. So thinking that maybe that would be the only thing I would have done differently is like, maybe I would have gotten a PhD instead of 2 master's degrees. But like, that's like, for some people, like, well, they only have 1 degree. Like, okay, Cara, like, we get it, girl. But like, that's the one thing I can say that I think about. But if I don't go to grad school and I don't meet the amazing Dr. Bill Sutton. I don't meet the amazing, incomparable Richard Lapchick. I don't meet the people who kind of had a hand in mentoring and advising me. I don't meet two of my best friends to this day. So I struggle with that question because I am one of destiny and things that are being divine in your path. And I do feel like every rejection, I still have my first rejection letter from Tulsa. I went to the University of Tulsa. I was going to go there. I still have the first rejection letter. Because for me, that was the motivation that sometimes you have a no, but that's okay. You'll keep going. You'll live. You can cry about it today, but tomorrow you have to get back up again. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I feel like that's probably a cliche answer, but I don't know what would be the one thing I would do differently or I would turn. I'm grateful for every no, every yes, every mentor, every advisor, every friend along the way, every encouraging word. From people who didn't know me, but knew someone who adored or loved me or mentored me and therefore wanted to see me do well. So offered a word of encouragement or picked the phone and called someone about an internship on my behalf.
Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic answer. And I love that outlook. It's a great answer.
Thank you.
Now, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn would probably be a good start. So LinkedIn, so it's Cara M. Adams or Cara Adams on there. So I think it's /KM Adams. We have Twitter, we have Miss, so MSK_Adams, Miss K_Adams there. And email, I'm happy to respond to or correspond with anybody on email. So that's Cara.Adams@trailblazers.com. So it's Cara, Kara.Adams, ADAMS@trailblazers.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all this time. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I am grateful for you for what you're doing, the space you are in. So kudos to the work you're doing. Some gems to leave to the listeners. Firstly would be to do all things. Do it all. Boxes are made for things, not people. So don't let someone convince you that because you are doing marketing that you can't do guest experience. So do all things, learn all the things. And secondly to that, I would say, if serving is beneath you, leading is above you. Never get too high, never get too big for the role that you forget that at some point you may have been the janitor or you may have been the coordinator. I always say I'm a respecter of people, not positions. Because at the end of the day, the person who makes $8 an hour could be the gateway or the gatekeeper to the person who makes $800,000. So respect everyone across the board, not for what they can do for you, because they're a human. I do appreciate you and all that you are doing with this platform. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Me too. I feel like you should drop the mic and just walk out right now. So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram @Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.